Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming along today to our latest episode of Coffee and Compliance. We're here to answer your questions, any questions you may have about the technologies used in forestry supply chains. I'm Holly Waters-Marsh from Urban Fox Marketing, and I'm speaking to Swapan today, the CEO of Deeply, to answer your questions. Today, we're looking at forestry and the technologies that use physical traceability methods, such as code marking. So in today's session, we are going to be covering, we're going to be looking at an overview of the technologies that are used to enable traceability. We are going to be talking about how first mile data is sourced and how it moves through the natural product supply chain. And we're also going to be talking about how code marking works in the timber industry with some real life examples for you. In today's timber industry, ensuring that every log can be traced from forest to final product is no longer just a regulatory expectation, it's a genuine matter of credibility. So code marking technology is at the centre of that transformation, and Swapan's going to give us some more details on that as we go through the session. But first, Swapan, back to the questions for you. So could you please give us an overview of the technologies that are used to enable traceability?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Nice being here again with you. When we look at our daily life and we are just doing our everyday obligations, we'll see that majority of products are code marked. Yeah, we know it. We're going to a grocery shop, to a pharma, and we know that there is the identification. When we think about natural products, we understand that obviously based on the specifics, there are different level of limitations or different technologies which needs to be implemented in order to get the right level of traceability. But here to get to the point, if the market is ready or it is really expecting to get the understanding of the provenance of the source of the product. Yeah. So, one thing are the approach of the legislation. We've seen it in the past years, for example, tobacco. Yeah. So all cigarettes are double code marked, yeah, in order to get their exact traceability. If we think about when we visit a pharma, we will understand that every time we're receiving medicine, it is being scanned with a QR code, and it is exactly put in a database that Swapan has purchased this medicine at this moment, this pharma, and trace back to the production. So it's important that we're getting the compliance in the supply chains. And now we'll be discussing what's happening especially in the timber industry, and how we can approach this topic, or how it's being approached now, and what will be the next steps. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. So, bringing the topic back round to our focus today, how is first mile data source and how does it move through the natural product supply chain?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And to make long story short, so if we can source the data in the first mile, we solve the problem. The question is how we do it. Let me give a side comment, because we had a couple of meetings holiday, and the topic of UDR is well known, and there are further expectations of what can happen here. But if we put a step back and we think that all timber logs are code marked at the moment they're harvested, with the exact data of geolocation and timestamp. And we can then keep them in a database and use them for further traceability in the supply chain, moving them to a next level of a wooden product. Yeah. So if we are just having this dream and thinking that that could happen, we don't need any regulator as UDR. Yeah? We don't need any additional bureaucracies which are put there because we're having a big issue on the deforestation, forest degradation. So there are a lot of issues why the regulator is trying to come with a solution. So one of the solutions, and we shall talk later about it, is the data gathering in the first mile. Yeah, if we can achieve it, then basically we can have really a good level of transparency in the supply chains.
And that first mile is really important, isn't it? Because that's the first step. Just to clarify for anybody who was wondering what the first mile was, that's the vital part of the supply chain, isn't it? In this instance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And how does you have just touched on this, but how does code marking work specifically in the timber industry?
Today, there are different methodologies of code marking. So we should begin with the ink spray of alphanumeric, code, which is usually done in African, Asian, countries, Latin American countries. When we look in Europe, we're looking at plastic tags, which are being with already a pre-printed QR code or barcode, metallic tags, RFID, tags. If we look at the market in US, we see that to some extent they're using labeling, so stapling a label with the QR code. So different methodologies are being used for different purposes, especially for the hardwood, which is the, let's say, more expensive timber, where this physical traceability of a log is being applied. But it is not applied in general. It's also run by country regulations. So even within EU, we got obviously a number of member states, and there is not one regulation. This is at the level of the member states how they're approaching this topic.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so if we look at some further question then, how exactly does technology like blockchain? I feel like we hear a lot about that term blockchain, but what is that exactly, and how does that enable better traceability from forest to consumer?
That is the expectation. We see that some companies are already trying to perform this process of traceability from forest to the final wooden product. So we can say, that once we will gather the right data in the first mile, then we can pass them to the next level of the wooden product. So it's also based here on some live examples. There are few furniture manufacturers who are claiming that they can give you the history of the tree. So this tree has been grown in this area in Alps and was harvested at this time. And from that tree, from that oak, as an example, or the species, you're having your nice table, which you're using, and you can have a good feeling that you like the design, you like the structure of the timber, and you know the history. So some companies are using it as their USP in order to attract the clients. So you see, it is driven by the market. Um, there are companies who, on one hand, are saying we're compliant in the supply chain, we have all the processes in place. There are other companies even going, further. We can tell you exactly this product is being produced from this source, right? So if we think about it, that will be the future, and the expectation of the clients on one hand. On the other hand, it will help us to build the database of the natural products at the first mile. So then we'll have a full understanding what's happening where, and we can deal with deforestations, we can deal with the degradations, and more importantly, we can also deal with any illegal activities which are happening on the market. And in the timber industry, that's a huge issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any real life examples of how decode works?
I mean, yes, we are really proud here that we have begun a very important project by building a new standard with our decode, which is basically the encryption of a geolocation and timestamp. So exactly what is required. So we're working with our colleagues on a project in New Zealand, and we're developing the technology to enable to provide all the first mile data in New Zealand. Hopefully by the end of next year, we shall bring the technology to the market. It's complex, it's challenging, but on the other hand, it's great really to work with our friends there, and everybody of us is very enthusiastic because we're bringing something new to the industry, and we know that it will bring a huge value once the technology will be developed in the way that it could meet all the expectations on the productivity side, on the landscape side. So there are a lot of issues. We're talking about natural products, yeah. So it's totally different than we're code marking something on a production line, yeah. We're having here, 4 seasons of the year. We're having different climates and different species. So just as a example, which I believe not everybody is aware of, in tropical areas, on 1 hectare of forest land, you can find 100 species of timber. So, and then you need to understand, which technology you need to use to code mark those logs, because there more than hundreds of species worldwide at different level of software hardness. And obviously, once you're applying a technology, you need to take into consideration all those elements to bring the technology to the level that can be applicable to all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. And are there any ways that this technology could be used, any other ways that this technology could be used, which hasn't been tapped into yet, for example?
Yes, the decode itself, to make just a short introduction. Usually, any codes which are applied on the market are being created to a database and then retrieved from the database and applied on the surface of a product, irrespective what the product or surface is. We have reversed this process. So there is no database of decodes. It's being created at the moment is being applied. And as I said, it is consisting of encrypted geolocation and timestamp information. So it is unfakeable. There is no two similar decodes because the timestamp isn't at 1 second. So even we're standing in the same place, every second we have a different encrypted, code. Yeah. So that gives us, first of all, productivity. It gives us the level of confidence because we can't fake the code, and at the same time, it is easy to get applied on a surface as timber or leather, or can be on any other product. Yeah. So one of the areas we're really now looking at is also linked with timber. It's the wooden pallet. Yeah. So we know in packaging, and everybody knows there are hundreds of millions of pallets being in use. Yeah. And now, when we go back to the UDR issue and the traceability, yeah, we do not know the origin of the timber once the pellet is produced. Yeah. So we could step back and we could say, yeah, let's apply a decode here and get this traceability and link it with the provenance, and then we can use and resell this pallet on the market worldwide, knowing exactly the producer data and the provenance of the source of the timber. So there also today different, I mean, the technologies which are being applied, yeah, on code marking of these products as pallet. It is a the hot stamp, or it is an inkjet is print. But both of this technologies have their own bottlenecks. And the most important is really, once you apply a code, is the readability of the code. Yeah. So it's more than 50% of a success is not by applying the code, but the capability to optically read the code in the life cycle of a product.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Just thinking about different ways that that can be applied is, yeah, that's an endless possibility, really, isn't it? And a bit of a wider question then here. What role does technology play in supporting environmental or social impact reporting?
Yeah, it's very important, because once we're really having the transparency and traceability till the source, so we get the first mile, I mean, data which we can then trace within the supply chain, whatever final product we're producing. So in terms of timber, it is linked with the carbon. Yeah. So we know exactly really what biomass we're moving out from this particular area. We also know that, as an example, there are a lot of forest areas which are trying to be kept in a natural way for the carbon, for the biomass growth. Yeah. But if somebody knows about what's happening in the forestry, you need to do work in the forest. You can't keep it untouched. Yeah. So due to different reasons, I don't want to go in details now, you need to get some biomass out of these places. Yeah. So you need the data. Yeah. So the question is, my biomass growth in this forest land is XYZ, and the cubic meters of timber which I brought out is the other number, and just get the equation and say, okay, so now my biomass growth is at this, I mean, level, and then I can transform it into the carbon credits. Yeah. So when we think about what all extra values we can get once we will build the first mile database in the timber industry in general, we then will understand why it is so important. And that's the reason why we're here, and we're trying to develop new technologies which could address this issue.
And are there any emerging technologies or innovations that you would see shaping the future of digital traceability?
Yes, I see that there are a number of companies on the market which are coming with ideas. It is great. Yeah. That it's not only we are here, but there are other guys who are trying to find, different technologies which could be applicable. Yeah. So obviously, one of the technologies where we can prove the source of the natural product is a DNA is test. Yeah. So we're getting basically close to 100% authentication here. But here the question is the business model. Yeah. So we know that the cost of such a test, DNA test, is, in 100, 200, pounds. Yeah. Level or more even. Yeah. So there are technologies which are coming. Okay, let's do some sampling of the natural, products, and we only perform the test once we have a case, yeah, to decrease these costs, yeah. This is just one of the examples. There are many, many other examples which are there on the market. We're also looking at it from a effective way, yeah, because any innovation, any technology you're bringing to the market, at least this is the way I'm doing it, ask first yourself a question. Will it be affordable? Will it be, economically wise to apply it? Yeah. Because there can be great technologies, yeah, and great innovations, but we're in business, yeah, and we need to understand the business reality. So when we think about it, yeah, that the way we're doing it, anyone who is thinking about, any innovations and he thinks, what new he wants to bring to the market. So it's not just the brilliant idea, it's more about the R&D of the product, but at the end of the day, equally important is the ROI and the cost efficiency for the clients in the future.
Absolutely. And I've got another question here. Do consumers really care about traceability and sustainability data, or is it still driven mainly by regulation?
Mm, I think it's both. In real life, it's both. When we look again to get back to make some comments on the EUDR, yeah, we see here there were some pioneers who began already, more than a year ago and are very successful in implementing it and building their business model on it, their brand name. That look, we have a full transparency into traceability. There are also companies outside of EU who are having other regulations than within EU, or have the need to say, look, our company is caring. We want to be the compliant in the supply chain. We're giving you the capability to have at any time in any audit, we're transparent, and we can secure the right information. And you can do it only once you're really at the transaction, level, yeah? Because we also discussed that there are a lot of approaches with certifications, yeah, general certifications, which are good. They're really good because they also are bringing the right processes in place, yeah. But when we look again on the other part or other side of the coin, and we see what is the level of fake products on the market, what is the level of other, let's say, illegal activities, it's huge. Yeah. So the question is how we want to address it. On one hand, it's the regulatory. So the governments and the administration see what's happening, how it is negatively impacting, for example, the climate change. So they want to really get it, to a level under control. But then on the other hand, we also see there are a lot of companies who want to do it just by themselves. Yeah, we are building our brand, we care, and we want to demonstrate to our market that we're doing it. Yeah, so I'm really glad to see that there are these two levels of approach, and what is really good, it is not related only to EU. We can see it in other markets. We can see that really there are companies who want to have their supply chains really under control. And again, to get back to our initial discussion at the beginning of our talk, today, is the first mile. Yeah. You have first mile, the data, you are the king. You can then do with them whatever you want to do, and you can get the full traceability in the supply chain. Don't have first mile the data, at least try to get the processes in place.
Mm.
At least try to get the process in place as much as you can under control, and then build on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, this process is centered around data and data sharing. So, how can we ensure data integrity and privacy when there are so many players involved?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, because this is the question everybody will ask at the start when they're having the discussion or thinking about what they need to change in their organization. Yeah, so obviously the technology capabilities are there. The understanding is there, and there are really no issues around how we can address it, how we can give the real accountability on one side, and on the other side, understanding the data privacy. We only want to share what we need to share. But at the same time, it's also very important to be, said here, we need to be organized in a way that we're open and capable for any audit. Yeah. And the audits usually are run on a transaction, level, which should confirm that the processes are in place in our organization. Yeah. So here we're also looking at a selective information which is shared in this part of an audit. Yeah. So basically, in general, the information is our data, our privacy, our security, but we're addressing it in a way that we're accountable for it, and we're just open to do any audit and confirm that all the processes are in place.
Yeah, brilliant. So that all of that data is secure, which is great. Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Coffee and Compliance. And thank you again, everybody, for all of your questions. So just as a bit of a recap today, so we've talked about the technologies used in forestry supply chains for traceability. And Swapan as well has given us some really great examples of their use in real life with Decode, with their customer over in New Zealand, for example, some really great examples there. And we've also talked about how this technology could be used for other markets as well, as that role of technology plays in environmental reporting. So lots of really interesting topics today. And crucially, we looked at as well how data integrity, as Swapan's just finished off there, and privacy are ensured through using a platform like Timber ID. So that's one less thing to worry about when you're looking at this. So do join us next Thursday at 9:30. And of course, we'll be answering your questions again. Next week, we do have a key update on the EUDR. Next week, Denmark they're currently holding the EU presidency, and it's expected to present a concrete compromise aimed at satisfying all sides in the EUDR battle. And so we're now waiting for news from Copenhagen. And also next week, excitingly, we'll be live from Italy, when we'll be joined by Idea Lignum's CEO, Romano Ogolini, and we're going to be discussing the Italian wood industry specifically, and the trends that we're seeing there in relation to compliance, any compliance challenges that they're having, and of course, that upcoming EUDR deadline at the end of the year. So looking forward to that session, and see you all next week.
Thank you.